Hey everybody, how's it going? We are covering another grammar pattern today on learning Japanese. That's what this channel is, in case you didn't know. We are going to be covering the phrasing あるいは to link alternate possibilities. Wow. Okay, so this is a grammar pattern that is actually somewhat rare. It's only used in formal speech or in written language, but I've been hearing it a lot in the anime shows that I watch, so I was like, hey, let's do a video on this. So I wrote the script out, and then after I wrote the script, I watched another episode of some random anime, and I heard it again, and then I was like, oh yeah, definitely gonna make this. So we're doing it. We're doing it. So the grammar pattern あるいは is going to be used to link two or more alternatives together, in which it's kind of implied that both or all of them are possible all at the exact same time, which is, whoa, mind-blowing, right? However, given that there is usually also an implication, depending on the context, that one of them is the best choice amongst all of them. And since this is kind of so confusing already from the get-go, I kind of want to just provide the actual translation of this grammar pattern to give you more of a sense of what the heck is going on here. But even then, the actual translation of あるいは is going to vary very differently depending on the context of the situation. I mean, not the situation, but the sentence, or I guess both. But I guess if we had to say the most common translation of it, it would just simply be or. In other certain contexts, it could also be translated to alternatively, or in some cases, or perhaps, or possibly, or maybe. And if that still doesn't make sense, let's try one more approach to kind of getting a feel of this. Let's look at the kanji for あるいは and see if we can get some sense from the meaning of the kanji itself. So the kanji for あるいは is this thing right here. Should be on the screen. This kanji right here translates to the following words. The word some, the word one, the word or, the word possibly, the word certain. And this is the same ある that we use when we say ある noun to mean a certain noun. So when we say ある学生, we just mean a certain student, or some student, or one student, or a student. This is going to be the same ある in あるいは, except it's just not going to show the kanji because this is usually written in the kana form. So now that you have been thoroughly confused by that load of exposition that didn't really give a clear-cut definition of what this grammar pattern is or how it functions, let's just jump into the example sentences to get a better idea, because I'm failing to give you a better idea without jumping into the example sentences. So let's jump. Oh, but first, just to outline the construction here, it's just going to be the phrasing あるいは followed by a noun word or just a clause. Okay, so for our first example sentence, we have the following line. 水曜日はどうですか? あるいは金曜日ですが? And so this line kind of has a context to it. It's just basically somebody trying to make plans with the person he's talking to, so he's offering some dates. So what it'll kind of literally translate to is, how does Wednesday sound? Another possibility would be Friday. So let's break down the sentence bit by bit. First up, we just have the word 水曜日, and this is going to translate to Wednesday. We have the particle wa marking Wednesday as the topic of the sentence. Then we have the default phrasing どうですか, and this is going to be a phrase that just means how about, or how does it sound, or how about, which I just said. So that's what it means basically. How about this, or how is this? So that first sentence in the line is just going to be, how does Wednesday sound, or how about Wednesday? And now we're going to initiate our grammar pattern, あるいは. And so the construction here is just the phrasing あるいは plus a noun, which is the noun 金曜日, which means Friday. Then we have that little phrasing at the end of the sentence, ですが, which kind of let's not worry about that too much right now. And so what this second sentence is going to translate to is just simply another possibility is Friday, or Friday, or how about Friday. And so here we should be able to see how the grammar pattern, how I explained it works, is working right here. We're providing more than one possibility. There's two or more alternatives here. One is being Wednesday, one is Friday. With both of them being possible, you can pick either one. With the slight implication in some cases where one is the better choice or one is the best choice. In this case, Wednesday would be the best choice, because when he says あるいは金曜日ですが, we have that ですが at the end of the sentence, which is a very, very slight nuance of, oh, I'm giving you the option, but it's not the one that I would prefer. And so when we look at our English translation, we see that the wording that we chose for here is another possibility would be Friday. That's just kind of a more long-winded translation to give you the sense of how あるいは is representative of alternatives and possibilities. If you were to translate that really simply, you could just simply say or Friday or how about Friday, and that would definitely make sense as well, because or is the most common translation that we provided for aruiwa. And you definitely also could have chosen any of the other more rare translations for aruiwa, such as perhaps or maybe. You could have just said or perhaps Friday or maybe Friday, something along those lines, and they all would have essentially evoked the same function that aruiwa fulfills. So yeah, that's our first example sentence. Let's move on to the next one. For our next example sentence, we have the line kare wa nette imashita, arui wa nette ita furi o shite imashita. And so what this line is going to translate to in English is he was asleep, or perhaps he was just pretending to be asleep. Let's break down the sentence bit by bit. First up, we have the word kare, which is going to translate to he. We have the particle wa, marking him as the topic of the sentence. Then we have the phrasing nette imashita, and this is just going to be the verb neru, which means to sleep in its te form. Then we add on the verb iru right after it to mean is sleeping, but then we conjugate iru into its past form, imashita, so that means was sleeping. So he was sleeping, or he was asleep. Then our second sentence is where we introduce our grammar pattern aruiwa, and this is going to translate to basically or perhaps or possibly or alternatively, something along those lines. Once again, we have the verb neru in its te form. Then we have the verb iru. This time it's going to be in its past form again, but in the plain past form, because we are using it with another grammar pattern, which is the grammar pattern furio suru, which means to pretend to do something. So we need the verb that is being pretended to be in its plain form. So nette ita instead of nette imashita in this case. Then we add on that phrasing furio suru. However, we also want to conjugate furio suru into something that was being done in the past. So we take the suru, which means to do, of course, that's part of that grammar pattern construction. We change that into its te form, so shite plus the verb iru to mean is doing instead of just to do. Then we conjugate iru into imashita to mean was doing instead of is doing. And so he was pretending to be sleeping, basically, is what that translates to. Without the aruiwa, if we add the aruiwa in, then it's going to be or perhaps he was pretending to be sleeping. And that's going to be our whole line right there. So you can see how we have the aruiwa in the second sentence that kind of brings up this alternative, or maybe he was doing in this instead, alternatively he could have been doing this, or possibly he was doing this. And so yeah, that's using this again to link alternate possibilities. Both of them are very possible of being right, and yeah. For our last example sentence, we are going to take a line from an episode of anime that I watched. This is going to be from the 5th episode of the anime Rewrite. And so for this example sentence, our pretty long line is さあ、これで君は秘密を守らず得ない立場になったわ。この件に関して口をすぐむか、あるいは... Okay, so that line was pretty long. It consists of basically 2 sentences plus the phrasing あるいは starting its own last sentence. What it's going to translate to is basically, now then, with this, it looks like you're obligated to keep this a secret between us. I trust that you'll keep quiet about this matter. Otherwise, ... Okay, so we're not going to break down the first sentence in this line word for word. That's just going to be there to provide a little context. So that first sentence in the line is going to translate to basically the first thing I said. Now then, with this, it looks like you're obligated to keep this a secret between us. So the person just learned a secret, and now the person talking is kind of threatening him low-key. So now let's break down the second sentence in that line word for word. First up, we just have kono. This is going to mean this. It's going to be modifying the noun right after it, which is the word ken, which means basically matter or incident, this matter. Then we have the grammar pattern ni kanjite, and this is actually one that I don't think we've covered this before, but it's basically just going to mean in regard to X, and X is going to be the noun or the word before ni kanjite, which in this case is kono ken, which means this incident or this matter. So in regard to this manner or relating to this manner, something along those lines. Then we end the sentence with kuchi o sugumuka, and so kuchi is going to mean lips or mouth, basically. We have the direct object marker o to mark mouth or lips as the direct object of the verb that's about to come, which is the verb sugumu, which means basically to keep shut or to keep sealed. So basically this is a pretty intense way of saying keeping your mouth shut or keeping your lips sewn together or something along those lines. Then at the end of the sentence, we have the sentence ending particle ka to turn into a question. So are you going to keep your mouth shut? And so this whole sentence right here is going to translate to, are you going to keep your mouth shut in regard to this matter, or about this matter, about this incident, basically? Kono ken ni kanshite kuchi o sugumu ka? And so in relation to our grammar pattern here, あるいは, that's going to be the first possibility or alternative. So that's going to be the choice in which you do keep quiet. And then we have this grammar pattern right after the sentence being used in a kind of open-ended way, where it's just simply the phrasing of the grammar pattern, あるいは, and then it's a ... and the sentence doesn't finish. But the implication here is, of course, that alternatively or otherwise, you don't keep your mouth shut and something bad happens to you. And so there you have it. Those are two alternatives, two possibilities. Both are basically perfectly capable of happening depending on the person's choice. But the implication, of course, is that there is a best choice, and that's going to be the first one, in which he keeps his mouth shut and he doesn't face the consequences or the threats that the person is spouting at him. And so yeah, that's going to be our last example sentence for this grammar pattern, あるいは. If you check the description or just our website or our social networks and you find this post, the text post on this grammar pattern, there are some additional example sentences in case you haven't had your fill. There's another one from another anime series and another one that's just a regular example sentence if you want to check that out. And hopefully this was a helpful video and you learned a couple of things, because we did relate it to a bunch of past video lessons, I think, unless I'm going crazy. But yeah, so thanks for tuning in for another video lesson of learning Japanese. Stay tuned for the next one.